Hello everyone, my name is student Gopal Christian from CKF and welcome to Java Jumpstart. Today we're going to be doing for loop practice problems. Please pause the video each time you approach a problem so you can try it on your own. And keep in mind, each program will be a bit different since there's multiple ways you could solve a problem in coding. Let's get started with the first question. Create a program so that it prints all the odd values from x to y inclusive. Multiple values of I should be printed twice. Example output. What if x equals 3 and y equals 11? So it starts at 3 because x equals 3 and goes all the way up until 11. It prints out 3 because it's an odd value, and then we move on to 4. 4 won't be printed out because it's an even number. 5 will be printed twice since it's a multiple of 5 and it's an odd number. Now first we have to get the input. Now let's get the actual value. Now for y. Now let's see how we approach this problem. First we want to start with x. So we start with x and we go all the way up and until y. It's because we're supposed to be inclusive of y. Increment by 1 each time. Now let's check the conditional statements. So first, our first condition will be if it's a multiple of 5 and it's odd value. So if I mod 5 equals 0, this checks if it's a multiple of 5 and this checks if it's an odd number. We want to print I twice. And the second condition if it's only an odd number. So else if we only print it out once. Now let's test out this code. Let's say x is 3 and y is 11. It prints out these values. Now let's do practice problem number 2. Print a triangle with the length of n lines. Increase the number of elements by 1 each time you move on to the next line. The beginning element should be 1 and increase by 1 each time we move on to the next element. The element resets back to 1 once you moved on to the next line. Example output when n equals 4. As you can see, there's 4 lines, and the beginning element is 1. The second line will contain an extra element, and going from 1 to 2. If you notice a pattern, each time we increase a line, the number of elements also increase. So line 3 will go all the way up and until 3. So first we have to get the inputs. And n equals now let's see what approach this problem. We want to print the number of lines. So first we print out from line 1 all the way up until n line and increment by 1 each time. Now we want to print out the actual value. First we see that if is line 1, we only print out 1 element. And if it's line 4, we only print out 4 elements and increment by 1 each time. So we start with element number 1 and we go all the way up until the line number. So let's turn equal to I. And if that's the case, we just print out after we're done with one line, we want to move on to the next line. And system.print will only contain one line until we do system.println. This makes sure the code moves on to the next line. Now let's test out the code. Let's say we want the length to be 4. It prints a triangle going all the way up until 4. Now let's do the hardest question, question number 3. This is a very highly intellectual problem, and please give your best try. Create Pascal's triangle with n lines. The first element starts with 1, and number of indexes is 1 in the beginning. Each line adds 2 more indexes. The elements should start with 1 and increment until it reaches the middle index. After the middle index, the element should decrement. Here's an example output if n equals 5. As you can see, there's 5 lines, and all the elements are in symmetrical. So there's number of spaces, ensuring that this one will be in the middle. So it first starts with 1, and each time you move on to the next line, there's 2 more elements added in the end and beginning. And if you look at the last line, it goes all the way up until middle number and then starts decreasing. Now first, we have to get the input. Now let's get the actual value. Now let's see if we approach this problem. We want to print out all the number of lines. So first, we start from line 1 and go all the way up until n lines and increment by 1 each time. Now we have to print out the spaces. We don't have to worry about the spaces in the end because we're just going to move on to the next line. So we only have to worry about the space in the beginning. And each time we move on to the next line, the number of spaces decreases by 1. So this is how we do it. So it starts at 1 space and goes all the way up until the number of spaces that we need minus I. So in line 1, there will be only 1 less space. Line 2, there will be 2 less spaces. So each time we move on to the next line, there will be less space and more or less spaces. And we increment by 1 each time. For it to print out the space. We print out 2 spaces because we're adding extra space between each value. That means we're going to need 2 more spaces to keep it in order. Now we have to print out the actual values. So first we have to increment it all the way up until it reaches the middle value, which will also be coincidentally the current number of line. So int j, it starts at element number 1 and it goes all the way up until I. Since I represents the current number of line, in the first line, we'll only print out 1 element because I equals 1. The fifth line, will print out all the way up until 5. So let's print out the element. Now we have to take care of the values that are decrementing. We're going to start from the value I minus 1. Because we're not going to print out 5 2 times. So we have to start from the I minus 1, the line minus 1. And then we're going to have to go all the way up until it reaches number 1, because 1 will always be the last value. And since we're decrementing values, we have to do j minus minus. Let's print out the element. Now, in order to move on to the next line, we're doing multiple prints. So it's going to continue the same line. We're going to have to add the empty println to make it move on to the next line. Now let's test out the code. If n equals 5, we get this triangle. Thank you for watching today's code, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.